It was the end of the school term. Everyone was looking forward to Christmas and were enjoying their break. However, I was not so joyful. My family was in the process of moving into our new house. My father had recently been fired from his job, and my mother had never worked a day in her life. We were tight for money and had no choice but to sell our house and move into a cheaper one. I was upset as we had lived in that house our entire lives and now we had to simply just let it go. A few days passed and we had finally moved in. The house was old and dusty. The lighting was dim and the floorboards creaked as you walked through the house. I hated it here. It was bigger than our previous home, but this house was old, and I won't lie, it certainly had an eerie air about it. I remember clearly going to bed one night and my sister scratching at the door to scare me. To make things worse, soon after we moved in, my mother told me that the previous owner's son had killed himself in the basement 20 years ago. A shiver ran down my spine, and I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I noticed my mother. She looked nervous and scared. She was standing by the basement and had just put a padlock on the door. I asked her, "What are you doing?" And she told me that there was mould in the basement. She didn't sound very convincing. After dinner I was feeling tired, so decided to go to sleep. I got into bed and was nearly asleep when I heard crying. This wasn't regular crying, this sounded like someone was in terrible pain. I instantly woke up to see everyone was okay. I had a feeling of great relief and I told myself I dreamt it and just simply woke up. I tried to get back to sleep and once again I heard the same crying. This time it was louder and more intense. I glanced out at the window and I saw a young boy standing outside of the basement door. I'd never seen him before in my life. He was wearing what appeared to be very old clothes. He stared at me for a few seconds and then pointed at my younger sister who was playing in the garden. I looked over at her. When I looked back at the boy, he vanished. I quickly told my sister what had happened, trying to remain calm. She told me that she had seen the boy numerous times and that she thought that he was one of my friends. My stomach dropped as I heard this. I rushed to tell my mother, but to no surprise she didn't believe me and she simply assumed that I was doing this for attention. Night came and I was brushing my teeth. I tried to get to sleep and, for the first time since I came to this house, I slept considerably well. I woke up in the morning feeling refreshed and glanced out of the window to see that there were police cars outside. My mother was sobbing and my father was talking to a police officer. I rushed into my sister's room to ask her what has happened, but she was nowhere to be found. I ran out as fast as I could, down the stairs, and asked my father what had happened. He told me that something terrible had happened to my sister, and he just broke down crying. I looked over to the basement and saw police officers with cameras taking pictures. I went into the basement. I found my sister in there. Her lifeless body was swinging from a noose like a rag doll, without any hands or feet.